Welcome to Healing on Purpose, a podcast for chronic illness, chronic pain, and disabilities. I'm your host, Shay-Lisa Jackson, and today I'm really excited about this episode because we talked to Desiree, aka Dezi Desert. It's our very first guest, and I'm so excited because this conversation was so amazing. Dezi discovered at 15 that she has 2 uteruses and 1 kidney, and we talk about the discovery of that just at 15 years old, how she advocated for herself with her doctors and her family, and so much more. I promise this conversation is amazing, and she's going to continue a lot of these conversations on her YouTube channel, so make sure you follow her. I have all of her information down below and in the show notes. So let's get into the video, but before we do, we got to do some ASMR, and this time I have some yummy, delicious green tea. I brought my kettle, and if you saw how much technology I have around me, and I have a hot kettle full of water. Do not try at home, but here we go. This is for you guys. I hope that you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys could hear that. We're going to go ahead and jump into the episode. Make sure you subscribe. Welcome, Dezi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Before we get started, I just want to give a beautiful disclaimer that disabilities are not a monolith. We are speaking from our own experiences. And so I want you to feel free to speak freely. And if there's anything that you don't want to talk about or broaching a subject, feel free to change, pivot, or decline any questions, just to our listeners know. And that we are speaking
Thank
from
you.
our own experiences.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. So I just wanted to kind of go in first and talk about the life-changing discovery that you had.
Yeah.
And when did you find out that you had 1 kidney and 2 uteruses, and kind of how did that affect your life at that time?
Yeah. So you would think that when a baby is born, we check to see if they have all of their organs, but I guess we don't do that. And especially something like your kidneys, right? How do you just check that for a newborn? So my entire life from when I was younger up until I was in high school, I just was always sick all the time. I was always really sick, consistently on antibiotics, always going to the doctor, but we didn't know what else, like what it could have been, because from just going to the doctor, everything looked okay. So fast forward to when I was in high school, I started to get my period, and my periods were just really, really awful. And we all think that periods are awful. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women just accept that that's how life is supposed to be, when I don't think that truly is how it should be. But nonetheless, I just kind of pushed it to the side and kept it moving. And so then when I got to a point where I started to notice like a lump in the lower part of my stomach, and showed my mom, and she's like, "Oh, it's okay. Like, don't worry about it. You know, it's probably just your body that's naturally changing." For some reason, that was not the case. Eventually, that lump grew super large, and then we went to a gynecologist who went to go do a vaginal exam to see what's going on down there. And when she went to go perform the exam, she couldn't get in,
Oh,
and
wow.
I was a freshman in high school. I was 15 years old. So right away, she sent us to the hospital. And
Oh,
she says, "This could potentially be a mass. I don't want to scare you, but I just want you to be prepared for what you could expect." Once we got there and they ran all the scans, they basically saw that that mass was a blood clot in one of my uterus. So I had one uterus that was getting a period successfully, and the blood was flowing through that side. But on the other uterus, there was something blocking it, causing blood to basically clot each month.
oh,
And
wow.
because your uterus is connected to your kidneys, that's why when you can get a UTI, sometimes that can cause a kidney infection. When I checked my kidneys, they saw that I had 1 kidney. So instead of 2 kidneys and 1 uterus, I had 1 uterus, or I'm sorry, 2 kidneys and 1 uterus. I had 2 uterus and 1 kidney.
Wow. So take me back to when you're sitting in the doctor's office and she has a look of concern on her face, and you're 15, and this is the first time I'm guessing you're at like a gyno appointment. How did that feel, that like we're going to the hospital right now?
I thought I had cancer. Like when she said mass, I was like, "Are you telling me that I have cancer right now?" Like,
Yeah.
I didn't fully, I didn't understand the connection between having a mass and having cancer. But her concern, like, she didn't say go home. She was like, "I just called the hospital. You need to go there right now." So yeah, it was really scary. I had no idea what to expect. Definitely didn't even know that two uterus existed. So I wasn't even thinking about that at all at that time.
Yeah, it's so interesting that because I know when you have a baby, they make sure, like, oh, the heart is working good, it has 10 fingers, 10 toes, but we really don't even think to check that all of the organs are doing good and that the number that is supposed to be there for our bodies to function, I guess, properly is there.
Yeah. And if I had never, say, that second uterus never had that blockage and never had the blood clot, I wonder to this day what I still know. You know, I wouldn't have known until it was ever time to get an ultrasound to
Ooh.
actually take a look at it.
Well, and so with your periods, well, we've talked about this, but your periods are really, really heavy. And
Mhm.
so when they figured out the blood clot situation, how, like, what did they do? And then did that change the way that your periods were? Was it the blood clot kind of causing some of the problems?
Yes, so the added pain that I was having was because I was growing that blood clot larger. So what they did for the surgery was they drained the blood clot. They removed the septum, which was just the wall that was causing that blockage, but they didn't remove the second uterus. So even now I have still have two uterus, I have two periods at the same time. There was a time where I was having my periods on different cycles, which was really crazy. And it just took a lot of different types of practices, you know, whether it was acupuncture, going to a holistic doctor, getting off of birth control, eating better, where my body started to be a little bit more in sync. So now I have one period, it's exactly 5 days. It only hurts it on day one, but it still is pretty heavy. Like I'm not getting away from that part. Yeah.
So what are some, okay, because I'm amazed because you've told me this story before, and I'm amazed because I don't think I realized you were 15 when all of this was happening. And I just know
Yeah.
when I was 15, I mean, what age did you get your period? Do you remember?
I got it. I must have had it the year before. So that blockage was happening a year of periods, basically.
Wow.
Hmm.
And so, just in your family, how were they dealing with their 15-year-old daughter kind of going through something that no one had experienced?
Yeah, I think I'm so open in talking about it now because I feel like I've shared this story so many times. Because when I found out, going on Google or going on YouTube, there wasn't any information about it. Now I'm in a Facebook support group and there's like tons of women in there that talk about it. But back then, there really wasn't that much information. So the hospital that I went to was a teaching hospital,
Mm.
almost something like you see in Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, so
So,
everyone crowds in the room.
yeah. So they had came and they asked my mom. They're like, "Hey, are you okay if we have like our students come in?" So literally, I'm 15 years old. I had never done anything sexual. Had never shown my body to anybody, and
Wow.
I'm in a room with my legs wide open and just all these people coming in and taking notes and examining me, and it felt like I was in a circus. You know, like
Yeah.
hearing a doctor saying that they've never seen this before isn't what you want to hear when you go to a hospital.
Right. It's
You
like
want them
the
to that's the last thing you want to hear.
and then you watch all of these medical shows, and it's so
Hmm.
frustrating when they're like, "Oh, I'm going to figure out your diagnosis. I know exactly what it is." So when you're a
Yeah.
kid watching those medical shows and you go to the hospital, you think that's going to be
Hmm.
your experience.
Yeah. And to even to preface, like rolling back before I found out what had happened, not only were my periods terrible, I was never able to use a tampon. Like I was like,
Yeah.
is there something wrong with me? Every time I try to put a tampon
Oh
in,
my
like it
god,
just
because it
doesn't.
was the blockage was already
Hmm.
forming.
I was like, this, like, I just can't get it in. Like, maybe there's something wrong with me. I had to use the bathroom all the time because the blood clot was pressing at my bladder.
Wow.
So we were going to the doctor, like, hey, we're checking her pee, we're doing all these urine tests, we're not finding something. And I'm like, you're not listening to me. I'm telling you, there's something wrong. Like, why do I have to pee every 10 minutes? I would take a sip of water and basically my bladder's full. And we couldn't figure it out.
So you were 15 years old, really advocating for yourself and making sure that your doctors listened to you.
Yeah, and I mean, even though they didn't until like you could visibly see that there was something wrong, they had told me they're like, if you would have waited any longer, like this could have ruptured, like this could have killed you essentially,
Wow.
and I think it was as scary as it was, it gave me that confidence early on that I know what's best for me. And that was the
Yes.
biggest takeaway that I took from that was just like, you're never going to tell me that what I'm feeling or what I'm going through is not real when I know that there's something going on, you know?
You just gave me chills because I think that's something really unique when you do have like some medical mystery or chronic illness and you're young.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just naturally wouldn't listen to you, but we really do know what's best for our
Hmm.
bodies. When I got
Yeah.
sick, I was 19, so I was a little older, but I mean, they wanted to have emergency brain surgery on me. And I was like, I mean, okay, it was out of being vain. I was like, you're not going to shave my head. Um, but I knew what was best for me. And the same thing, I can advocate for myself way better, I think, because like, and it's so rewarding when you're like, I knew something was wrong. You should have listened to me. Did you go back to your doctors or, and like, kind of, I told you so?
Yeah, I mean, I went back to her and I was just like, basically the same thing. Like, see, I told you, like, it wasn't all in my head. And I was always like a super dramatic girl growing up. So I'm sure that my family was just like, all right, Desiree, like, you're fine. Don't worry about it. So I couldn't blame them for the responses. And I just don't think it's something people think to check. So, at the same time, I can't blame anyone that I was going through, but yeah, I don't think anyone really thinks to check, does someone have two uterus or not?
Yeah. So this is kind of a weird question, but if you decide to have children, I don't know if that's in your life path, if that's something that you want. Um, but if you were to have a daughter, would you kind of what is something different that you would do?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that specifically, but I think whenever it's appropriate, maybe around the time that she's going to have her period or something, get a sonogram,
Mm,
request that I have a sonogram performed because that's a least invasive thing that I think could be done because it's just basically here, drink a bunch of liquids, let's press on your tummy and make sure
yeah.
that everything's okay. So, yeah, that would be nice to know. So I can kind of help her along the way.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, do you know if it's genetic, if anyone else in your family might have been through something like that?
So, from my knowledge, no one else in my family has been through it. On my mom's side, we do have a set of twins, and I've always been curious if that manifested in something with the two
Mm,
uterus. But from my understanding, the way that we are developed in the womb is that you're actually born with two uterus and they merge into one. So I think what happened along the way was mine never merged into one. And then the same things with your kidneys. As a little fetus, you have one and it branches out into the two. So maybe just something along
wow.
the way that didn't work. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So, okay, having a one kidney, how does that manifest in your day-to-day life?
So I don't think that it makes a huge difference in my day to day life, only because I was born with one. So when you're born with one, your
Mm,
body has prepared itself to act as two and support you as so. I think it's when you're born with two kidneys and maybe you give up one or you donate one or you lose one. I think that's when your body really starts to feel the difference. Um, I've always felt like maybe I just had a weaker immune system, but who knows if that's attributed to the one kidney or if that's just something in like my genetic makeup, like having a lot of food sensitivities or things like that. But I would say for the most part, I don't think it prohibits something, but I definitely do think it guides me to staying on a good path when it comes to taking care of myself. So sometimes I wonder, I'm like, if I had two kidneys, would I be like eating everything crazy and drinking crazy? Maybe this is like what keeps me on the steady path.
it's funny because I think that too. I'm like, I would not even be close to this healthy if I
Yeah.
didn't have my illnesses because I don't want to eat this way all the time. Like, I would love to just be able to
Yeah.
pound down like veggie burgers all
Hmm.
day and like eat tons and tons of candy. I would love to do that. But
Yeah.
now everyone is kind of catching up to us in terms of like we were so young when we got sick, so we had to start
Hmm.
taking care of our bodies. But now people in our age group are getting older, so they're
Yeah.
having to take care of themselves the way that we've been doing.
Yep. And I mean, it's nice when people can turn to you and they can ask you like questions about taking care of yourself and you can give them the advice and all the feedback. But yeah, you definitely grow up differently in a sense that like I feel like you also almost mature faster of just like, okay, I have to actually take care of myself. It's not when, everyone says when you're in your late 20s, you're still kind of like not a full adult. But I feel like I've been an adult from an earlier age because I had to take on a lot of that responsibility.
Yeah, I I feel like I've been able to be a kid in some ways where like when I was going through my process, I wasn't really listening to everything that was happening. Were you like really active and like listening to the doctors, writing notes? Are
I mean, yes and no. So as it relates to the kidney specifically, that did change a lot for me because I used to be very active when I was in elementary school. I was playing basketball, playing soccer. So the one thing that they had told me immediately was no contact sports. Because if I'm playing a sport and somebody like elbows me in the kidney or something, like I don't have that second chance to back up to.
wow.
So that was like, oh, right away. I think when doctors give you advice on like eating, it's like, oh, okay, but like it's just bad for you. But the recommendations of no contact sport was life or death, essentially.
Wow.
So that immediately I gave up, which is, what you mentioned before, why I became a bikini competitor later on. Um, but they didn't really give me any information or any tips on like, hey, here's how your periods could potentially be better or things like that. Those are all stuff that I ended up figuring out on my own.
Wait, so you left your surgery and it was just kind of like, good luck, we took care of it and
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And the surgery itself was also pretty traumatic in a sense because they didn't cut me open. So the surgery was vaginally. I got stitches inside just as if I had gave birth to a baby. Like it was a mess. And so I missed maybe like a month of high school, my freshman year. And then I just came back and one thing I was terrified also, I was just terrified of like other boys. I was like, I'm never having sex. Like I don't want anyone to touch me. What if I got pregnant in both uteruses? Like I
oh
was
my God.
terrified.
Because they
So
didn't
yeah,
give any education on
they also didn't really know. Like if I had questions like, okay, can I get pregnant into uterus? Oh, it's not really that common. We haven't really seen it much. Like they didn't have the information. Now I've learned through the other women that also have it, but back then they didn't really give me any info.
So, what is the answer? Can you get pregnant in both of them?
Yes. So having two uterus, it doesn't make you any more fertile because I don't have
Okay.
an extra set of ovaries, right? So I don't have an extra production happening. I just have a different space. So for example, one vagina, two different cervixes, two different uterus. So they could go in one and I could get pregnant a week later and it can go in the other one. So it's up to chance at this point. It's not very common that that happens, um, but it definitely could happen. And having the two uterus and one kidney is a little bit more rare. Like a lot of the women that I know that have the two uterus, they don't really have the one kidney
Oh, wow.
situation.
So,
Yeah.
even in, we're talking a lot about pregnancy, so I don't know if that's something that you want.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is.
It is.
Okay. I
Yeah.
I realized I broached the subject and was like, because I don't like it when people assume
Assume.
everyone is
Yeah.
going to have children, and I just did it. Um, so have you researched anything about if you get pregnant and how your kidney will be affected by the pregnancy? Will it need to work harder?
Yeah. I think that's one thing that I've learned from the other women in the group is that number one, it seems to be trickier to stay pregnant. They don't have a hard time getting pregnant, they just have a hard time carrying to term. Um, with having one kidney, yes, it's probably going to put a little bit more pressure on it. Also, with having a double uterus, I'm not allowed to have a natural birth or a push. I have to have a C section. just due to the shape of
Okay. Like the
how the
canal, I
baby is
guess.
placed, the canal exactly. And also when you're pushing and you're putting so much stress on your body, I wouldn't want something to happen to my kidney at that time, you know?
Wow. Yeah.
So it is recommended to have a C-section. I know a lot of women that have tried to have a natural birth and they just end up going and getting a C-section because their bodies just couldn't tolerate it. But I would say when it comes to pregnancy, yeah, they all seem to be okay with just getting pregnant. That's not the issue. It's just carrying to term and then actually delivering. But I've seen a lot of success stories, so that makes me happy.
That's
But it's just
awesome.
something, it's something in my mind that I've had to mentally prepare myself for, that when that time comes, like I want no stress in my life. Like I want the most relaxed job because I want that to be the main focus.
Right. That's
Yeah.
beautiful too, that you're already like planning for it because I
Yeah.
I think with having, these illnesses that a lot of times can't be described, or a lot of people just haven't gone through it, or it's hard to find the people that have gone through it. There's a
Hmm.
lot of mental gymnastics in planning our lives for the future,
Yeah.
and it's not the same luxury that able-bodied people have, where it's like, I'm going to
Yeah.
do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. um
Yeah.
and so thank you for sharing that with us, because I know that that can bring a lot of anxiety just thinking about
Yeah.
the future, and it's not as easy, I think, as it is for a lot of other
Yeah.
people.
I would definitely say that having kids in the future is also a big motivator for why I take such care of myself now, because I want my body to be in the best shape possible for when that time comes.
Hmm.
But it is really hard when, like, I think last week I've been just trying to walk more, and it just sounds so silly. Like, I used to be a freaking bikini competitor, and now just going for a walk is like exhausting. But I think I didn't even do a mile. I did 0.75, and when I got back home I was just exhausted. I was like feverish, my throat was hurting, my head was hurting, and I'm just like, if I'm exhausted from not even a mile walk, how am I going to survive taking care of a child? Like,
Yeah, I think that all the time because I
but
can't go on
we
walks.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we're any less deserving of being mothers.
Right.
So it's like, it's that weird balance of understanding and being realistic about the state of your body, but also not feeling like you should turn down that side of your life just because of it, you know?
That I love that you said that, because I think a lot of times with me, I'll just be sitting in my room and I'll get really sad at the possibility of maybe. I think because it's hard for me to wrap around my mind, how am I going to have children and take care of them? And I
Hmm.
just don't want my kids to be like, Mom is always in the bed. Like, she can
Yeah.
never play with me, because I have chronic fatigue. And I know that you
Yeah.
experience a lot of that too. And it is like a brick on your, like tons
Hmm.
of bricks just on your life, and you're like fighting to get out of bed
Yeah.
every day and like do very simple things. Um
Hmm.
and so I love that you open that part of the conversation, because it's a real thing. And I was actually talking to a friend in my Instagram DMs, and she just got diagnosed with lupus. And so
Hmm.
that was one of the first things that came across her mind, just as a young woman. How am I going to have children and like
Yeah.
have the energy? Do you have anything that kind of like motivates you? Because I know that is your motivation, but in terms
Yeah.
of like being the mother.
I wouldn't say a motivator, but like a security is knowing that I have an amazing partner.
Mm,
Like knowing that I'm with someone that knows the state of my body
mm-hmm.
and is still like, yeah, let's do it anyways. You
Yeah.
know, that makes me feel really secure, because if I didn't have that, like, I wouldn't do it. You know, like that, it would be way too much work. And I was even looking, like, I've never looked at or cared about like maternity leaves at work and things like that. So now I'm starting to like, okay, what is my company policy? And it was like, I think I had read that you would have to take out like short-term disability to get like a full length of maternity leave.
Mm,
And in my head, I'm like, but what if I actually need that short-term disability for
right.
me, not for having a baby?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a lot of things that you start to think about. But I my advice to myself is like, you'll kill yourself with hypotheticals in any situation. So
Whoa.
sometimes you just got to do it. Sometimes you just got to go for it, and you figure it out along the way.
Yo, you'll kill yourself with hypotheticals. That just blew my mind because I have a lot of anxiety and I'm always trying to
Hmm.
create the story and I'm like, what if this and
Yeah.
what if that? And I'm just nowhere near that. Um and just knowing if the friend that I'm talking about heard you say, I have a
Hmm.
secure partner. And I know a lot of people are like, well, how did you get the partner? How did you get someone that is like, if you want to go into it, like when you were dating and you were single,
Yeah.
how did you even broach the subject of like, listen?
Listen, we talked about it maybe first week. I was like, look, I have two. I was like, I have two uterus. I have one kidney. When I get my periods, they're really bad. Like we have a code word. We all I have to say is day one. Like if I text him day one, he knows it's day one of my period. That's like we canceling the plans. He's ordering dinner or he has to cook. Like I'm not doing anything. Just like all hands on deck. Um, and yeah, I think it's just as long as you have a partner, there's things that you can teach a partner, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can teach someone in certain ways how to love you, but I don't think you can teach someone to just be very caring and just wanting to always make sure that you're okay. There's that just something you can't teach in my book. So once I saw that, I didn't have to ask for certain things. Like if I told him, hey, I'm about to spiral, like I can feel my body like going through something, he's just like, all right, what do you need? Okay, let me help you. Like it's okay, we'll get through it. And after going through a lot of scenarios like that, that's what made me feel more secure about, talks about the future and babies and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, usually when
Yeah.
I'm dating, I'm like, we just got to get this out because I can't, like, you can't sit
Yeah.
on it. It's like,
It's because eventually, like it is a huge part of your life, whether we like to admit it or not. Sometimes I don't like to. I feel like I associate too much of my life, or sometimes persona,
mm-hmm.
is like associated with just my health and all the things that I've gone through. But I also can't act like it's not part of my life, and it does play a huge part. You know.
Yeah, that was a struggle that I had with kind of creating this podcast and realizing,
Hmm.
okay, I'm going to be talking about having a chronic illness, being in the disabled community, and I also have to like tell people that I'm disabled because
Hmm.
I have able body passing privilege. I look
Yeah.
like I'm not disabled. And so it was
Yeah.
like this weird thing where I know that people view disability in a certain way and they're going to
Hmm.
put me in that category. And I was just, it was like a battle and a fight.
Yeah.
And same for you. I know that you have a chronic illness and you
Hmm.
look healthy, quote unquote, and it's not
Perfectly
until
fine. Yeah.
right, it's not until people talk to you or like see you do something or if you're in a pain
Hmm.
moment that people would even know.
Yeah, when I first started making content specifically on YouTube, it was around the two uterus and things like that. And then I started opening it up to, what I'm going through post bikini competition and chronic illness. And half of me was just like, am I placing so much importance and so much value on this illness in my life that like it's never going to escape me? Like am I
Mm.
attached to it so
Like
much that
kind of
like
like manifesting and making it more
in
important to
itself,
you.
yeah. And there was one time in therapy that I had came to this realization that my parents had split when I was really young. But, you know, in that time, it's easy to feel like no one's paying attention to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that when I was sick, I got attention.
Mm.
I know that when I was sick, mom's canceling work and she's spending
Yeah.
time with me and she's taking me to a doctor. So subconsciously, you're rewarding that sickness because it's giving you what you wanted, which was attention. And sometimes I try to think about, am I kind of playing that same cycle over in my adult life where I'm talking about sickness or I'm talking about the things that I've gone through as a means for attention? But I think what it truly is I'm sharing a story that when I was going through it or when I go through it, I feel very alone. And this is my
Yeah.
means of connecting with people so that they don't feel alone too, you know?
Yeah. And you're giving back something that you needed when you didn't have access to it. And
Exactly.
I think that there is like this weird line, because for me, my doctors a lot of times didn't believe me because I was going into college and I
Mm-hmm.
was studying theater arts. So they were like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
girl,
A little Miss Dramatic.
you are being," and I've always been dramatic my entire life.
Yeah, me
I've
too.
and I've always kind of like gotten sick, and that's when your mama loves on you or your dad loves on you,
Yep.
and it feels really good, but like you're not gonna like really fake being sick the way we're sick,
Mm-hmm.
because it hurts and
Yeah.
it's not fun to like only
Yeah.
be able to get out of bed to use the bathroom and barely be able to do that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what I was gonna say, but because I went into like seeing you as a little girl, and like
Yeah.
you really just needing that comforting, because I also come from divorced parents, and they got
Mm-hmm.
divorced when I was really really young, and so my dad lived in a different state, and so whenever they were around, and like even if they're busy with things, when you're sick they care for you so
Yeah.
much.
That happened with me when I got to the hospital when they were finding everything about, the uterus. My mom called my dad and was like, and like they weren't really talking at all. And she was like, you need to get here right away. So it's
And you
like
see them.
subconsciously, you see your two parents that you love so much that aren't together all the time. And now they're there and they're being joined by this essentially negative thing. So yeah, I think about that a lot. Like, am I continuously manifesting some sort of illness because of the need to feel loved? And so I I had did a practice where I started to write like a ton of like healthy affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was, I am loved even in perfect health. Like
Ooh,
I don't need to be unhealthy for someone to love me and for someone to feel like they need to care for me. Like they can still care for me even when I'm healthy, you know?
that's beautiful. Yeah.
You're like, I need to, I'm like, write it 10 times. I
I'm
am
like,
loved in
okay.
perfect health.
I'm like trying to literally writing a mental note, like, all right,
Yeah.
we need to do some affirmations, because
And I put those affirmations in my budget, funny enough, because I'm always looking at my budget and I'm like
okay.
really crazy about that. And I used to have money affirmations there, like
Mm-hmm.
all about abundance. And I'm like, all right, I think I got that down pat. Like I'm good with the budgeting. So I put my healthy ones on there and I look at it every time I can.
Yeah, I put my affirmations in my planner, and I do it every
Mm-hmm.
Sunday at 4 p.m. without a doubt. And I just do all my affirmations and I plan my whole week. And it really just having affirmations, period, helps. So I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking like, oh, I need that one to be. And I think too, a lot of times is that I feel like people will accuse you of being sick for attention, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to, and so it plays on that, like, am I or am I
Yeah.
not, and am I really
Yeah.
sick or am I making all of this up, and then that turns into a completely different spiral, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
healthy either. And it's kind of like, how do you make sure you stay on the ground that this is reality. You are sick, and
Yeah.
it's okay that you're sick, and you're so loved and being sick. And people don't just let, because honestly, in my experience, people usually went away when I got really sick. Not
Mm.
family, but friends. They like went
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. And I think the same thing for me. I was very triggered by speaking up for myself and not feeling like people were listening when I
Mm-hmm.
had the blood clot. I'm like, I'm telling you that there's something going on and you're not listening to me anyways. And so sometimes whenever I complain about things right away, I'm like, am I just speaking because I feel like nobody's listening? Like, like am I just
Ooh,
always like, oh, I don't like that you did that and I'm gonna tell you. I try to think of what's causing that reaction. So
you're making me think so much that I can't like get words out, because I'm like,
this is the
because
self work.
yeah, but I remember, the first time we had a conversation, there were so many things that we both were like, "Oh, I do that." And just like
Yes.
our
Yeah.
upbringing is so similar, and it's
Yeah.
and being sick at such a young age and having to make decisions for yourself, you're not going to be like your peers, because a
Hmm.
lot of times they were in just different spaces in their life, and it is different
Yeah.
when your entire life is controlled by this thing that you can't see.
Yeah.
and you're feeling, but no one can like quantify that you're feeling that. Like a lot
Yeah.
of people didn't understand two uteruses, one kidney. So it's like, we don't really know what you're feeling.
Yeah, like that happens to me, or it, I mean, it still does happen to me, but it happened to me a lot when I was in high school, when like I'm not coming to school the week of my period because of how bad it was. And you would talk to other women, I'm like, yeah, I have really bad periods. And like, yeah, girl, me too. I'm like, no, 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 no. Whatever you think you have, I promise you, it is nothing like mine. And, I think as a society, we're just all like, okay, periods, whatever, women deal with it, get over it. And it's like, where's the period leave? Like, where's the period PTO? Because
Yeah.
this is what we really need.
There was a job that I saw. She's an astrologer and she posted like a job position, and in all of her job positions there's period PTO. And
I
I
love
was
that.
like, they're like menstrual leave. I was like, oh
I
my
love that.
God, this needs to
Because
be
it's
like,
so annoying. Every job that I have, once I get hired, I'm like, so manager, let me tell you about this thing that happens with me once a month. Just to let you know, I might need some time off, or I might need to work from home, which is why I love working from home now. So,
yeah, and you're full time at home.
yeah.
Is it because of the pandemic, or is this a new position that's just fully remote?
It's a new position that's fully remote that I started in December. But my last position, I was still working remote maybe twice a week, but now my official position is all remote.
Okay. With the I know you're a very active girl. I'm not as active
Yeah,
as you.
I'm not anymore. A lot of people think that I am, and I'm like, I really am not.
No, I mean in terms of like going out. Like I feel like
Oh, going out.
you
Yeah.
go out, like
Yeah, that I am.
yeah, like not like running active, which by the way,
Yeah.
you guys need to check out her Instagram. Dezi does it because, ma'am, you posted this fire picture for your birthday of you in
Oh.
carnival attire.
Mm-hmm.
You're not active no more. Oh, I'm like, girl, what? Is this your
I'm like,
baseline? Because this is amazing.
that's just me. Like, honestly, my body, it's one of those things where like the outside world is always going to tell you that you look better than how like you feel about yourself.
Right.
That's just a given. But I know that like I know I look okay. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
that.
Right.
I don't feel okay.
Right.
That's
Right.
the biggest point. So it's like when people are like, "You look fine. What? You haven't worked out in so long. You don't need to." And I'm like, "No, but I need it. Like, I really need it
Yeah,
in my
because
life
you can
again."
really, when you don't work out, you feel it. It almost feels like your bones are like, girl, like you need,
Yeah,
like
they
your
you can
actual
feel it.
bones, like your body, your posture is different. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything, you don't feel this. Like I feel very weak. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of like moving like this all the time, and it's hard for me
Yeah.
to get still. Um, but when I was saying active, I mean like you go out and you like you and your boyfriend are so cute. And so I was gonna ask, does that with the pandemic and everything
Hmm.
slowing down, how did you feel? Like, so for me, I felt like, oh God, like everyone is kind of on at my pace because I just have a
Yeah.
lot of chronic fatigue. And so I
Yeah.
kind of need to be in the house a little bit more. But when everything slowed down, like how did you feel the world kind of seeing a chronic illness, a pandemic for the first time?
Yeah. I think it wouldn't have been as bad if there wasn't so much uncertainty of what was going on. Like I almost wish I could redo a lockdown.
Yeah.
And like now I'm like, okay, I'm safe with my job. Like my family is safe, and just stay home and relax. But I really took that time as a chance to reset everything, like get to basics. I think I started with a new doctor around that time. I was really focused on my diet because I'm like, I'm not eating out, I'm not going places. So it allowed so much of the pressure to be lifted off of
Mm-hmm.
feeling like I have to be social. Not
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like I have to, because I love being social. Definitely an extrovert, but I was like, okay, I don't have to worry about going out somewhere and like declining drinks or going to a restaurant, not being able to eat certain things. Like I can just feel good in the comfort of my own home. But yeah, I was definitely glad when things opened back up and I was able to get vaccinated and finally feel like I can be me again, and take a lot of the things that I had put into practice while I was at home and still carry it through.
Oh, that's nice. I think I had a
Yeah.
little bit of that too. Like figuring out my new normal, it gave me
Hmm.
time because
Yeah.
it was terrifying in the beginning. I think I was just like still. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I was going to lose all
Yeah.
my clients, if I was going to like get it. I didn't like I didn't know what was
Yeah.
going to happen, but once it was like okay, this is just something that's happening. Let me figure my
Yeah.
life out. It felt really good to say, okay, these are things I'm going to be able to do. These are things I'm not going to be able to do. And so when you go out now, do you are you eating out or do you like eat before you go and
Yeah, I think it's funny. One thing I just thought about this past weekend was I have to account eating into my getting ready to do things.
yes.
So like, oh, I'm getting ready to go out tonight. Like, no, I have to get ready to eat beforehand, or I always have to check like, do I need to bring something there? Are they gonna have things on the menu there? Because I'm both gluten and grain free. The only grain thing that I can have is sometimes like corn products. I can't eat corn, but like I can stomach corn tortillas. So something
Mm.
like tacos I can do, but um, yeah, I feel like I did really well at figuring out what meals and what foods worked for me during that time. So now when I go out, like I don't even play around anymore. I think in the past I used to be like, oh, I can have a little bit of this and some of that. Now I'm like, I don't even buy it in my house. I don't even tempt myself. I accept it for what it is at this point.
You're so good. I'm still not there. I still like and I can't and I saw like a random thing on TikTok of a clip from Kourtney Kardashian, and
Hmm.
she said the best advice she got revolving food is to um, make the healthy decision at the restaurant. Like if you're eating at a restaurant, just make the
Yeah,
healthy decision and you'll be happy once the food comes.
yeah,
So like when I go to brunch, I would always get French toast. I know that
yeah.
I love French toast. It's the worst thing on the menu.
I love French toast so much. I have a recipe for a grain-free French toast casserole. I'll send it to you. I haven't
Yes.
tried it yet, but it's in a book, a cookbook that my boyfriend got me called Against the Grain, and it's full of just grain-free recipes. So I'm gonna give it a
Ooh.
try soon. But everything else that I've tried from the book is really good.
Oh my gosh, we should try it like on FaceTime or something and like make it together
Yes,
and see if it's good.
yes.
Like just plan like a cute little date.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So I just have 5 fast questions to ask
Okay.
you. I say fast, but I asked myself these questions and I was like giving
And you're
why.
like, they're not really that fast.
Okay, so we're going to get into the fast 5 questions
Okay.
and uh you're supposed to answer them one word or one sentence, but
I'm terrible at that.
I'm not even
I like to elaborate.
me too, and I love to talk and have a convo like so
Yeah.
answer however you feel best.
Okay.
The first question, what's the best thing that happened to you this month?
Well, the best thing that happened, I'll say, was my birthday. It was July 23rd, so we're still technically in the month. But I just think that I'm in the best place in my health that I've
Mm,
been in a really long time. And I have to continuously remember that, even when I know that I'm not where I used to be. So
yeah.
it's like, I think you always base it off of proximity to like how your life was. But
Hmm.
like, I just have to forget about that. I'm like, I'm in the best spot that I can be at this moment.
Oh my God, you're giving me chills and making me cry. What makes you feel strong?
I wanted to say working out. I miss it so much. You know what? Like after a period, I just feel really strong. I'm like, I went through it. I survived and I can fucking kick ass now. Like, like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. What hobbies or activities fulfill you?
Hobbies or activities that fulfill me, just like things like this.
Yeah.
I like connecting with people. I like sharing helpful things. That's one of the reasons why I became a content creator. I never wanted to be someone that was just putting self-serving things out there. I always want to feel like you actually serve your audience when you create content. And I think that anytime that I'm able to connect with people and they tell me like, hey, I saw your video on this, or I tried this and it actually really helped me in the things that I was going through, that makes me feel super fulfilled.
Yeah. And your content, by the way, does. You can tell that you care and you're not just putting things
Thank
out there
you.
to like,
I struggle with that so much. I like whenever I make something, I'm like, is this for me? Like, am I just doing this for attention, or like, is does it actually mean something? You know,
yeah, but everything doesn't have to mean something too.
it
Like
doesn't
you
have to
can,
be that deep.
yeah, you
Yeah,
can like do it for you too. And I
yeah,
have the same thing where I'm like, no, what, like this needs, people need to care, and I need to make sure I'm
yeah.
serving an audience. And sometimes it's like, no, I put this picture up because I really like the picture, and there's
Because I
no,
actually look hot.
yeah, and there's no other reason why I'm putting this up. I need you guys to
Yeah.
tell me I look hot. Okay, what's one thing you're grateful for?
One thing I'm grateful
I know
for.
these are like really heavy questions.
There's so much. I feel like I'm grateful for just growth.
Mm.
Yeah. That's the only one I can give you the one answer for. Growth. The one
Praise be
word.
for growth. Okay, last question. What's one thing you do to heal on purpose?
One thing I do to heal on purpose. Never stop trying new things.
Ugh,
You know, like I was going to a doctor that was getting the answers for me. Like she was helping me along the way. She was doing everything that I wanted, but I felt like she just wasn't giving me the level of care and like connection that I wanted. Like our phone calls always felt rushed and they felt kind of short. So I was getting the answers like in my labs, but I just didn't feel like I was connecting with her. And I could have just stuck it out with her, or I could have stopped and not continued my journey. But I just continuously keep trying new things. All right, let's go to another doctor. Let's try this. Let's try that. And I'm always open to just trying new things. And I think that that has definitely been the reason why I can heal myself as much as I have so far.
beautiful. Going into that really quick.
Yeah.
No fast questions really over here. In going to different doctors, so for me, I'm like, I can't do it. They're not listening to me. They're not
Yeah.
like, they just don't believe me, or they hurt my feelings. And how do you
Hmm.
get back up and go back to another doctor? And because I cannot stand seeing a new doctor, it takes a lot for
Yeah.
me.
It is. The doctor that I'm going to now was actually recommended. It's actually my next YouTube video that's scheduled for next week. Shameless plug.
Go subscribe. I'll
Go
leave
subscribe
everything in the show
to.
notes too.
Awesome. But one of my favorite content creators, her name is Organic Olivia. She's an herbalist and she talks about just like healing. And she also has a great podcast. And she interviewed the CEO of the doctor organization that I go to, which is Parsley Health. So, long story short, I pay a monthly membership and I have a holistic functional medicine doctor. I have a health coach, and they go into it automatically with like just the mindset that they're going to look at the entire picture.
Wow.
And so I think finding them was really helpful for me, um, because they were able to really reassure me that all the things that I was going through with chronic fatigue wasn't just in my head. You know, when I would tell them, hey, I can do 10 squats and I feel like I got hit by a truck, like it's not normal. I know what it's supposed to feel like, and that's not it. They
Mm-hmm.
really reassure me, like, okay, we're going to get to the root of it. And they try to connect all the pieces with me. So I'm really glad that I found them. But I think I just stopped going the normal like Western medicine route. I was about to say Eastern medicine. Yeah, I just stopped going. You know, like when I was having my thyroid issues, I was going to doctors that they're like, okay, just take this inflammatory pill over here and like you'll be good. And I'm like, I don't even let it get me down. I'm like, all right, next. Like
Right.
we're not even gonna put up with you.
So wait, is that Parsley Health community, is that only available
Mhm.
in Miami, like Florida, or is
No,
it
it's online. So it's online, yeah.
I'm like, you're dropping
I can
gems. I need a notebook.
Yeah, I can send you the link to them. So basically what you do is they do a really comprehensive questionnaire which you get to keep. So if you ever
Ooh,
wanted to go to another doctor, you can always print that out or email that to them and they'll have it, but they ask so many questions like did your mom have a C-section? Did she have a natural birth? Did you breastfeed? And these are questions that like normal doctors don't ask, but they really do a deep dive analysis, and they don't take insurance for like the tests and things. You can put it through your insurance. So even though I have insurance, I also don't mind paying out of pocket for them because there's so many times that you go to doctors that are in your plan and you're still paying for surprise things and you have no idea what it is.
yeah.
So I would rather like pay my set amount a month, do what I have to do, and then instead of just like feeling like you're continuously getting the runaround.
Okay. I have more questions on that, but you have a video
Yeah.
coming out, so I'm going to wait for the
It's all in
video.
there.
And I'm going to wait for the video and make sure everyone else goes and watches that video
Yeah,
because it sounds.
that video will be all about parsley. I still want to do a video on like the state of my health and like what happened, right? Because I
Mhm.
felt like I do have a lot of followers that started following me around the time that I was a bikini competitor. And I wonder, do they sometimes ever think like, what happened to that? Like she just
Yeah.
fell off. Like I never post, if you follow me for fitness content, then, unless you really connected with me, do you still care to follow me because I don't have that? And it's not because I don't want to, but because of everything that happened. So I think my next video will be like a true deep dive of
Yeah.
all the things that happened with my thyroid condition, chronic fatigue, and like all the food sensitivities that I never had before. Like, how did that all of that come about? So, I've just been putting that one off because I'm like, it's so much,
And it's
like
emotional
it is, it
going into
is.
like talking about because for me it would be acting. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to act so bad, but when I can barely get out of bed, how can I book a role? Let me not talk
Yeah,
myself out of a role just in case someone's watching. But like,
yeah,
how am I supposed to book a role, show up to set 8 hours a day, and then, or it's way more than it's like 12,
yeah,
15 hours a day,
yeah.
and I can barely get out of bed. And that emotional component of like letting go of something you dreamt about, like bikini
Mm-hmm.
competitions,
Yeah.
and you need a lot of physical energy for that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And it's like not only do you need a lot for that, but it took all the energy. Like
yeah,
it didn't take the extra that it took to actually do that. It
yeah.
just drained everything completely from me. And that's not to say, there's a ton of people that still do it and they're successful at it and they do great. But I just had to learn that like my body's not your body, and I can't blame my body for taking it a certain way, but I also have to respect it. And I knew that there was something going on after my first show, and I still pushed it for my second one. I was like,
Mm,
maybe if I tried another way, I'll be better this time and I'll feel better. And that wasn't the case. Who knows if I was doing more damage than good. So, yeah, I do want to make a video on that. But I think the title that I was thinking about was like, I'm allergic to working out, because
ooh,
that's
yeah.
how it started. I was like, why am I getting sick every time I work out? I could not understand it. I would catch a fever right away, like itchy throat, stuffy nose. I'm like, what is going on?
I
Why can't
remember
I?
you were on a
Yeah,
walk one time and we were talking, like sending voice
yeah,
notes, and you were like, I need to, like, I'm itching, my throat hurts,
yeah,
and it's closing, and and you
yeah.
still
I'm
don't
like,
know
why?
exactly what it is.
We're pretty sure it's paired with the adrenal fatigue, but I have blood work coming up and we're going to start looking at things like fibromyalgia. Like
Sisters.
yeah. I'm like, why is it when I get a massage, I feel like shit?
Yeah.
Like my body just actually doesn't feel good when I get a massage. So yeah, we're still exploring other things when it comes to that, but for the most part, we've been able to identify gut issues, thyroid issues, adrenal issues, and how they all are combined with one another.
Wow. Well, you actually make me excited to want to try this doctor program out because
Yeah.
I need to go back to the doctor and get all my tests, and I really wanted to get my blood type because with all of the
Hmm.
things I've had, I don't know my blood type. We can't find
Yeah.
it.
I don't even know mine. And I feel like that's something
How
you should
like
know.
because they have like eating like foods that are good for your blood type.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And so I'm like, how I've been in this doctor system for so long. How do I not know my blood type? And we went through
I
all the
know.
paperwork and we cannot find it. And it's
Yeah.
frustrating, but I just need to get back in the rigmarole and I really don't want to. So you were speaking directly to me. I have no idea of anyone else.
Yeah. Actually, the only thing that I wonder if I can explore upon with parsley is I was just reading a book. I'm in a book club with my boyfriend's family.
Oh,
And
so cute.
the book that we read this month was about two sisters that they didn't know that they were sisters, they didn't know that they existed. And one of them needed a kidney. And they found each other through like a 23andMe type of thing.
Oh wow.
And so I started to think to myself, like, if I'm gonna start thinking about having a baby and planning that, like, should I have a backup, like, secured kidney donor, like, just in case? Should I know who's a match?
Yeah.
Should I start doing that process now instead of like, God forbid something ever happens? So now I'm like, not only do I need to know what my blood type is, but maybe I should start like testing myself, testing my family members,
Yeah.
just to see, like, God forbid something ever happened, that I know who a match is.
It's interesting that the doctors didn't bring that up when you
Mm-hmm.
discovered the one kidney. Like, hey, just
Yeah.
later down the line, you might want to know
Yeah.
who can, so you're not.
Especially when you're born with one, you're not able to be on like a transplant list because you don't need a kidney because your one is functional as two essentially.
Oh, wow. So you have to go to the
So
back of
yeah,
the list if you did need one. All right. I guess it
if
would be the severity.
exactly. So if something were to happen to my one, then yes, I can join the list. But only because I have one, that's not enough of a reason to be on the list.
Wow. It's like I would never know that.
I felt I learned so much about like just the process through reading that book. So now I'm starting to think about that. I'm like, maybe I should start finding out like who would be a match for me just in case.
And it's a rigorous process too to like figure out who's a
Mm-hmm.
match.
Yeah, because you do your initial blood tests to see if someone's a match, and then you have to do some sort of like marrow, like additional tests, and you could do all that, and they could be a match, and it still wouldn't work
Oh,
anyways.
and it can
So
reject it.
again, you'll kill yourself with hypotheticals, but it's a
Oh
good
God.
thing to think about.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I I think it was Selena Gomez that needed a kidney.
Yeah, she got one
She
from her friend.
Yeah, and it rejected,
Hmm.
and she had to
Yeah.
go immediately back into the operating room, and that's how she has like
Hmm.
a bigger bulge than what would because it was
Yeah.
like a traumatic surgery for her.
Yeah.
I pray that you
Same.
never need a kidney, an
Me too.
additional kidney. um,
Same.
well, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. This was a
Thank you.
beautiful conversation, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for having me and for letting me share it.
Of course. If you want to find more about Desiree, find her on Instagram at Dezi Does
Mhm.
It. Did you want to plug anything? Is your YouTube channel Dezi Does It too?
Yeah, everything is Desi Does It. My website, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I don't really use it that much, but I'm there.
And she's great on Twitter. I love following you there. Um,
Twitter is like my last place of hope where I feel like I could really like just be myself sometimes. But yeah, I love
yeah,
Twitter.
I'm getting more comfortable being like just saying the random thoughts. My drafts are, I usually throw everything in the drafts and they're crazy, but now I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to post it.
We need a Twitter close friends. Because
Oh my
now,
God.
like,
Yeah.
sometimes people from work start following you on Twitter, and I'm like, sometimes when there's like the verses happening, and I want to like tweet all
Oh,
these
you be
crazy
going
lyrics, and I'm
in on the
like,
virtues.
but sometimes I'm like, I have to tone it back a little bit because I don't want these people thinking I'm crazy.
Yeah, and my name, like when you Google Twitter is one of the first things that pops up, and I'm like, I don't
Uh-huh.
want that. Like, I actually, it's like my
I'm
only
so
place
far
I can be
gone.
me, but I don't
I've
want to
been
put
on
it
Twitter for
private.
over 10 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm like, listen, if I got really famous and they dug through my tweets, I don't know what they would find.
listen. Same.
um, but yes, thank you for being on this episode. I really enjoyed your conversation. It meant a lot that
Thank
you were my
you.
first guest. And I'll
Aw.
put all of your links down below so anyone can follow you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining that conversation. It was so amazing, and I hope that you guys will go follow Dezi. Make sure you follow us on Chronically Good to get more information on our next podcast episode. It is bi-monthly every Sunday at 3 p.m. Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. And if you want to be on the podcast, make sure to fill out the questionnaire that we have below and someone will reach out to you. So I'm so excited and I love you guys so much. Thanks for watching. Bye.